Welcome back to Let Us Pray. We are at episode 2, season 2 with...
Dose.
We have a special guest.
Dose. Ooh.
This is Caleb.
Yes.
Caleb. He is my mentor.
Caleb what?
Caleb
what?
Wood.
Caleb
if he
Wood.
could.
What's up?
If he could, he would.
If he could, he would.
And he is.
How much would a woodchuck chuck?
How much?
If a woodchuck could chuck wood. Nah, I'm just kidding. I don't know. Fix it in
Caleb
post.
is a great mentor. He is starting a podcast actually too.
Yo.
For
Shameless
worship
plug.
mentorship.
Come on.
And he's just been walking me through what it looks like to be an apprentice
What's the
at
word?
Elevation Church.
Words are hard.
What is your title? Worship leader.
Worship leader. Yes.
Worship leader at Elevation Church.
UC.
UC. Shout out
Do
UC.
you see
what I see? We just break out and sound like this is a Disney musical.
How long have you been a worship leader at UC?
At UC, I have been a worship leader for 2 years.
You're going to want to hold this a little closer.
A little closer, like this.
UC is.
Do I need to rest it on my chin?
Rest
like that?
Rest that mic
Can.
on your chin.
Or I can. All right.
How do
Yes.
singers usually do it? Man?
Singer? Well, it depends on the mic, but usually it's like you just like right up
Or
there.
do you like...
Right? Eat the mic.
Okay. UC is University City. It's one of the campuses from Elevation. And you said you've been there for how long?
Been there since February of 2021. So a little over 2 years.
Period.
Yeah,
Really?
And then
period.
you were leading worship for how long before that?
I've actually been leading worship. I've been at Elevation since 2017. Excuse me. Been on staff since 2019, but been leading worship since I was a teenager. So 15. As 14 years old, I picked up a guitar, started to learn how to play. 15, I was thrown into worship band as a youth at my church, and like the history, from there on.
Man's just seasoned.
Yeah.
He's
Seasoned.
His seasoned worship
Seasoned.
leader.
Seasoned.
And now, I know, getting to know you, you've been telling me about how now you feel like God is calling you to grow people so that they can replace you. Right?
Yeah.
How are
So
you?
you giving up your job?
Yeah, I know, right? Well, work
He's like, I want to be
myself
worked out of a job.
out of a job here. No, I think what we were talking about, like leadership, and one of the things I'm learning in leadership is like, you can lead like this, or you can lead like this, and like.
He closed his hand and then he opened it.
Hold, open
For the
here.
Spotify people.
I was about to
Spotify, yeah.
Because I'm like, he's right there in the camera.
Because that sounds funny. You say, just hear me say, you can lead like this, or you can lead like this. So I
They sound
get
the
it now.
same.
Didn't think
That's
twice
fantastic.
about that.
No, so you can lead with a closed fist, and just hold on to all of the cool opportunities and the things that you get to do. Like at Elevation Church, like super honored to be in the position that I am. But over the past 2 years, especially getting to realize like there are people that they're not just for me. But they're for me to help steward, they've got gifts of their own, and they've got callings that God's put on their life. And so how do I help be a catalyst, kind of like pull them back on the slingshot and just point them in the right direction and boom, let them go. So yeah, I've been learning a lot about how to do that over the past couple of years.
Did you learn the hard way or the easy way?
To do.
Is there an easy way to learn that?
Yes, because I think the easy way would be you kind of watch or learn from other people's mistakes and then decide that's not who you want to be.
Yeah.
And I think the hard way is having someone correct you because you didn't do that.
Yeah,
before.
I think for me, I just had to learn. I had never gotten to a place of leadership until last January. Where I had gotten our worship team grew to 15, 16 people on our team, which isn't I guess for some people that's a big team, some people that might be a small team. But for me and my leadership, I'd never been there before. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I don't know what to do anymore. How do we grow? We've got a big enough team.
Yeah.
We don't need any more people per se, but it was okay, what do I do now? Mm-hmm. And so feeling that, that age old thing of you can grow or you can be comfortable, but you can't do both. You know, growth is not necessarily comfortable. So I had to figure out, what does it look like for me to find where the deficits were on our team, and be like, identifying the potential in other people, and say, like, you're really good at this.
Yeah.
Like, why don't I hand you this and like coach you, and then give it and let you take it further than I can take it, you know? And so thus you begin to like multiply some things other than just like.
What's your reason for wanting to multiply?
For wanting to? I mean,
Yeah.
I just think that that's a great leadership model of, and that's definitely a value of the culture of our church, especially is, one of the codes or core values that we have is like, we don't maintain, we multiply. And I think that, even Jesus exemplified that in the way that he didn't just grab 12 guys and say, follow me and watch what I do, but he did that for the purpose of multiplying that in them so that they could do what the Bible says. They ended up turning the world upside down. Question.
He's like answering your question.
I know.
I know.
I've got a question.
No, I'm like, I love this run-on question that's happening.
So what about we're a non-question.
Not a run. It's not a run-on
Since you're answering that question, I've got another one.
While you're in the middle of this
Before
question.
I forget, everyone, I have ADHD.
Rabbit trails are my favorite thing.
What about the person that wants to be the person? Like, that doesn't want to... Like, do you think that people need
like
their
this.
turn? Or
Is that what you're saying?
Like
No.
what? Like how?
this?
Like
Can you
this.
describe that for me?
Close fisted.
those that can't
Spotify. There you go.
Spotify or Apple Music, Apple Podcasts,
Apple.
or iHeart, whatever
SoundCloud?
you're into.
It's like,
I don't even know what's out there anymore.
There's a list. You want me to list them all?
Do it. That's great.
Well, okay, so what about the person that not necessarily, like, do you think it's okay to be a little selfish in some seasons? Because some people, maybe that's their time to grow, or I don't know. Like, do you think that intentions should always be to work yourself out of a job, or is it okay to have seasons to be a little selfish?
I love that question because I think that it's, yes, I think that it's okay to, there's this thing where you have to inspect what you expect. So as a leader, when you're building things into others, like, first of all, you have to build it. So and any great leader has a great team with them. Can you go far by yourself? No, I think you can go fast by yourself. I think that you go far with others. I think you go far with the team, and your ability to replicate the values that you have. Or maybe it's the value, like for us at Elevation, like I'm a worship leader. So I submit myself to the leadership of I have a supervisor and I have a campus pastor, and then ultimately Pastor Stephen, and like lining myself up with the vision and values of our church, which is so that people far from God will be raised to life in Christ. Like, so to have that to be aligned up under, so that my values as I'm leading my worship team, regardless of what it looks like logistically from campus to campus or church to church, that we're lining up with that specific value. Right. But being able to like do that, and in the beginning, to answer the question, is like, I need to spend time on the front end of this to make sure that my team understands certain things before I can't just like start out by saying, here, you do this, you do this, you do this, and then just run away. Like, everybody's got it. No, it's like you forgot, a couple steps in there. But I think that there's a place where you get to where it's like, okay, I feel like we've done this and now we've reached the plateau. Now it's time to climb again. And what that climb looks like is like, now how do I, like, for me over the past 3 years, it's looked like build, develop, mobilize. And so build the thing. Then the next part is develop the people to do the thing. And then the third step is like, how do I mobilize them to do like to lead at a higher level, so that other people they can. It's like rinse, wash,
Right,
repeat.
right.
Like do the same things again. And at least for me right now, that's what I'm seeing as effective in my leadership.
BDM.
Yeah. BDM.
BDM.
Right.
This is what he's here for.
Just bit him. That's all I got to offer right now. Just put him. All right, leaders. Put him. Remember.
So at the end of the day,
Put him.
But um,
but yeah, there you go.
so do you think that, because I know for CJ, it's like when we this is for
You
you.
know.
When we like first came to North Carolina, we
I thought you were gonna say when you first met. I was getting ready for like an origin story.
Here's how I led her.
Here's how.
I said, listen here, girl.
Long walk
Girl.
on the beach.
You're going to do as I
Girly.
say. No, I'm kidding.
when we first moved. So back in Florida, he was the guy at like that was
Man.
like
A guy.
he was the
guy,
guy
man.
at church that like that's the one that plays the drums, you know. And
For that season.
For
Only
the season.
because
You were the
Right.
one, but
I was the badum. I was a badum guy
You were the
because
badum. Do
there was like
he
they
was but
everyone else left essentially. Like
Yeah.
the other guy went to college and I hadn't gone to college. I was in college, local college.
Stupid. I'm the one that didn't go to
I
college.
was at a local community college. And yeah, I was the guy for the time being because I loved going, I loved serving, and so I was pretty consistently there. Like I played straight every Sunday for 2 years until I went to college. away college, but so that's in the theory of being the guy. Not saying that I was like top dog. Just had to make that clear.
But you were the badum guy.
He was the badum guy. Do you think that that time could have been or should have been used developing someone else to work himself out of a job then?
To take my spot.
Yeah.
Take your spot.
Because I know you've always wanted to build youth. Like that's been something that has always.
Oh,
Well,
yeah,
would that
yeah.
fall on me? I wouldn't say I've always wanted to build youth.
Not
but
always.
It's I see a need for it. Only
Yeah.
because that's where I got my start essentially. So
yeah.
and watching
Same
how
here.
I kind of rose up through that and different things, I think the youth needs to be
How did you
poured
start?
into.
How did you start?
How did in youth?
But like, in what? You were, how old?
I was like 15. I just tried out for the youth band. I don't even remember. So there was a huge change in turnover in leadership in my church, where we got like a new pastor right when I entered like the switch over to high school phase, and then through that I don't think we had like a youth band or anything before that. But this new guy came in. He's like, all right, we're doing everything like new. Like it was a new cutting edge thing. It was very scary to the upper leadership and whatnot. It was like, we had games in the youth room, we had snacks and all that.
You were on the edge,
Yeah,
man.
we were on edge. We were coming in with the youth band and like
On
these rowdy kids are making their noise with the hippity hops. But
Yo.
but that's where I got my start
Pushing the
essentially. And
Pushing the
that's
envelope.
where I rose up, and I think
It's
there's
the same guys that say I have holy jeans and they're just rips in them.
something along there got lost in translation over the years, at least that I've seen with other places, where it's like why I see more adult figures leading youth group and things like that. Like, this is like the college team, or this is the young adults and big church team. We're just going to lead the youth in song and whatnot. And that's great, but who's developing like the next person to come up and move through that? And that's where I think that it develops a place for lack of future musicians, because one, I know the youth are scared. Like no one's willingly like, I'm gonna get up there and do that. Like it's nervousness. Like,
Sure.
there's only like a few select people that are willing to do that,
And they're not going to be great at first.
right,
Usually.
and they usually won't be great, but I think
the
that's a
same
point
three
of
chords.
developing and building them up so that you make way for future generations and things like
Which,
that.
disclaimer, by the way, when I grew up in the church that I grew up in, this was just that would have been a foreign concept to me, because I grew up in a church where it's like 20% of the people did 80% of the work. So it's like there was no multiplication happening.
Right.
There was
Right.
not this idea of like
That's true.
replicating values or replicating like building and growing. It was just like we four no more, like we're here, you know, like, but so little church joke there. I just remember like have never having or being challenged to think this way until I got like here to Charlotte and Elevation, being a part of this church, this organization that is just like mind blowing, like how like the gears that are turning,
right.
and so now I get to be a part of it, and I'm just loving every minute of it. Where it's like now I'm trying to think, okay, how do I even go further than that now?
Right.
What does that look like? The kingdom of God is growing, and like, you know, so like, how do I make sure that I'm contributing to that?
That's good.
You know.
So like developing, you would say, is just a part of the culture that's within our church, but maybe a smaller church might not have that that goal.
I mean, I think that there are some churches that are smaller that do, and some larger churches that may not, you know, so it could be either or, you know. I think it just depends on like what your view on like what the gospel is intended for. Like, who are we trying to reach, honestly? Because it's like if you're just holding a service just to, you know, whosoever will may come kind of thing, and there's not really an emphasis on we want to grow, then I don't think you will. I think you'll just, whatever you accept as the norm, like that'll be your norm. But if it's like, no, there are 100 and some odd thousand people in this community, we got to try to reach them. You know, the gospel is like, hey, Jesus loves you. He came, he died for you. And we don't know who all knows that message, or who all believes that God is for them and not against them. So I'm that's why, you know, I when I discovered through I think it was listening to Elevation Worship first, but discovered that, this is actually a church.
Yeah.
And
I remember having that conversation with CJ too. We're like, wow, it's really just church.
Yeah, I was like, I'm not playing there.
It's a church. and I didn't realize this. And I was like, it's based in Charlotte, North Carolina. I've never been to Charlotte. Never will go to Charlotte, you know? And then I'm in, you know, Ohio, Cincinnati, Ohio, you know, a couple of years ago. And then end up, and then a shift and ended up shifting, you know, and stepping away from a church role where I was a staff worship leader, and being at a place of like, where do we go? What do we do? Being in ministry limbo, so to speak. And I had been listening to the worship team and Pastor Stephen for about 5 years up until that point. And so I was like, I loved it, but I was just not at a point where I thought I could ever be a part of that. I thought it was way too cool. And I was like, I'm just this little kid from a country town in Alabama. Like, what right do I have to be there? Huh?
From Sheetrock Corner?
Sheetrock Corner. I'm from good old Talladega, Alabama. You know, Ricky Bobby and I grew up together. But yeah, coming here and then being a part of this. So like a lot of the any kind of leadership, you know, that I have in me now as a direct result of this ministry, like stuff that I don't think I ever learned some of the things that I know now until, you know, about 6 years ago when we moved here to Charlotte.
So there's, we mentioned growth and growing a lot. So one thing I'm curious about, does growth have to be painful? Because everyone talks about growing pains and things like that. I think change
We literally just named our last episode Growing Pains.
Growing pain, yeah. So like there's been a theme of growth and things growing, hopefully not tumors. But but see, a tumor growth isn't painful at first because you never notice it. They have to catch it. So, but change, I think, can be the hard and painful part, but
not for
is there something like, is there considered comfortable growth or steady growth or something that's just like we're a slow climb, or does it always have to be like, no, we are switching everything and we are going to drastically rip this apart to grow?
Yeah. I mean, I think of a couple of different analogies. I grew up playing sports, and so I immediately want to go to baseball and think, what what analogy can I pull from there? But
Swing, champ.
Right? But I think about like lifting weights. Is it comfortable to add 20 pounds to the barbell?
Depends. And so I'll say this because I've been going to the gym lately.
Not the eye flutter. I know.
Flex that right there. Oh my God.
It's the slight flex.
I'm speaking on personal experience. and because like I've been sick, like I won't be able to go back to the gym till Monday again, so it'll be like 2 weeks off. But so the initial push of like, no matter how small you go, like you could do a barbell with nothing on it, but if you haven't been in the gym in a while, it's going to shock your body, and then you're going to spend time like, oh, like you've really kind of ripped your muscles apart a little. You got to re-heal. But so I've noticed.
But then have you really grown, or are you just getting back to where you were?
Well,
you know?
so you grow because I mean, if you're not using your muscles consistently, they shrink, they deteriorate, atrophy, and things like that.
I'm
so
surprised he's not an 8 on the Enneagram challenger, because he'd be challenging.
Rebuilding that back up,
Challenge
then
everything.
yeah. So that initial like turn of direction where it's like I haven't gone to the gym in a year, but I'm going to go now, that's going to hurt. But if you're going, in my process, I've been going for a few weeks or a couple months, and then as I'm going, I'm like, all right, this week I feel like I handled this weight a little, I'm going to add like another 10 or 20 pounds. But so I feel the difference. I'm going to feel something, but it's not going to hurt anywhere near as much than when I just like came in cold.
Got you. Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. Like we can talk about like the actual like pain. I don't know if all growth is painful. I do agree that there is a level of uncomfortability that comes with the unknown of growth. When you're growing as a kid, like there's sometimes that you're growing and you don't know it. You're just experiencing the uncomfortability,
That's so
and you're
true.
like, why am I so uncomfortable? Why is my leader challenging me all the time? Why am I feeling like I can't do things right anymore? Well, it's maybe because you're stepping into a realm of leading in a way you've never done it before, or maybe you've been put into positions that's different. Maybe there was a need in kids ministry. Whew. Glory, hallelujah.
Glory.
Bless them kids.
But like maybe there was a need and you started to serve because you wanted to meet a need, but then you realized, wow, kids ministry is tough. And you picked up that weight and you're like, this is different. I've never lifted this weight before.
Right.
So I think there's all sorts of different ways that you could like use it as an analogy for growth. I just know that none of the growth that I can look back on and be like, whoa, I grew a lot in that season. None of that was comfortable. None of it was fun. Now I enjoyed the benefits, the byproducts of it. I enjoyed like
seeing
it's
it
just
from the
like
other end. Hindsight's 20/20.
right, just like you enjoy like flexing. I enjoy this. I enjoy the benefit
But
of
thinking
working
about
out.
going to the gym is not.
I don't necessarily enjoy sweating my butt off while I'm trying to lift
bad.
this bar up for the 13th time. I don't that necessarily. It's not. That's what I'm saying. It's not necessarily comfortable,
Right.
but I think it's like.
Right. I'd rather be on the beach, like
Right.
in that moment.
It's so
than-
funny that you mentioned that. So I had this jazz teacher back in college.
Back in band camp.
When was that?
This is
Back in college.
this particular instance was maybe 2012. God, this is just
Dating
dating
yourself
myself
now. Yes.
bad.
Paul
But,
Cole back in
I
college
remember-
in 2012.
But I remember because we were talking about like some song or whatnot, and he was mainly talking to wind instruments. Me being a drummer, I get left out of a lot of conversations. It's
Right.
like we have to do these certain scales and whatnot. I'm like, all right, that's you. But it was for me
playing
too
around
because I
on
had
the
to play
set.
piano. But he would mention like, all right, here's the different scales that you could walk over this pattern and things like that. And he's like, you have to rehearse these patterns so that they become muscle memory in your head, and that way when you're faced with it while you're performing, your body just kind of like lets it out. You just do it. You're not really
Naturally do it.
overthinking it.
Yep.
And he made the reference of you have to work out before you go to the beach and take off your shirt. And I never forgot that line. I was like, that is the truest thing I've ever heard
It's so
anybody
true.
say. Like, you got to work out before you go to the beach and take off your shirt, or maybe you don't. You might be the person that's like, I'm just going to wing it and
LOL
let it
me.
all fly in the wind.
I mean,
It's gonna
the
fly.
same thing for me as a worship leader of learning a new song. If you don't know the song really, really well and you get up to lead it, you're more dependent on that.
Right.
The lyrics
Confidence
in the
behind.
back, and praise God, hopefully the lyrics person stays on time and everything. Otherwise, it's going to be like watermelon.
Watermelon?
Yeah.
Is that
that's
what
it.
you're singing?
Watermelon. You never heard that?
Oh,
That's
yeah,
old.
yeah.
How
That's
old am I?
right.
How
No,
old
but
are
you
you?
don't- You don't
We're just,
say
like, going in a
watermelon, you
bar.
mouth it. So that's
Or that.
hilarious.
I mean,
Just I say
it's
say
just-
it. Say
why not?
watermelon.
Say it. Why
you
not?
don't say watermelon.
Well, okay, what is
my
it?
And they'll-
watermelon. You know,
You mouth watermelon.
What does watermelon insinuate though? Like what word is it
It
supposed
just
to be
and
close?
it just looks like you're actually saying the right words.
I
Yes,
doubt
don't know.
that.
It
I would be
works.
like the girl that's on that Instagram video
Look.
where she's like, "I need the words right,
Right,
now."
that's the one I was
This is
thinking
my
of.
test.
Oh,
Wait,
God.
sing. This
Was
is
it
my
that?
testimony.
That was the song.
Yes,
wasn't
sing.
it?
This is my
Yeah.
testimony, and then you mouth watermelon. Go.
This is my testimony.
I'm not saying anything.
I
I'm just-
know. We need to see.
It was just like.
Go ahead. This is.
This is my testimony.
I highly doubt that. I could. I could
You didn't even
list.
do it. Give it a chance.
If I played Tiny Tim right now,
Acapella.
living in the sunlight, loving in the wind. If
my
you say
gosh.
watermelon, it is not going to line
Try
up to that.
it. Try it. You
ahead.
sing.
Say
No,
watermelon.
you sing it.
Living in the
Watermelon.
sunlight,
Water-
living in the.
You can't say it, Caleb. You have to
But
mouth
even if he
it.
wasn't saying it, the watermelon doesn't
I'll
line
go.
up.
You do it.
Living in the sunlight, loving in the moonlight, having a wonderful time.
I don't.
It
I'm
doesn't work.
speechless. I'm speechless.
It doesn't work, and we sound like idiots for 2 minutes.
Child. Anyways, I don't have any. I don't have time for my question.
You have time
But
for your
what?
question. We
got
have plenty of time for your
Fix it
question.
in post. You can edit it.
Right, like we
Post.
control this,
Imagine
baby.
your podcast
have
is
to
just
look
all
it up
choppy
again, 'cause-
because it's different questions. And go back to. Let's go back to that one question we asked 20 minutes ago.
Rewind it to the beginning.
Back to CJ in
Donde?
Florida. This was like 5 topics ago. Topics ago. So we, frick.
Can you say frick on a podcast?
Yeah, frick.
Oh wow! Yes. Okay. I didn't know
also
what kind of podcast. For those of you listening, I had no idea what kind of podcast I was on.
I didn't know what I was signing up for. I did not approve of this. Wait, I could fix it in post.
Correct.
We're just gonna replace it with something else.
Say
This will
frick
be
on
a little
podcast.
bit longer of a podcast.
Okay, where's the line between developing yourself and then like how do you know when to start developing others, or do you do them simultaneously?
Ooh, can I chime in on this one?
Yes,
So
please.
not that I've developed others, but so what I've heard was a sign of one of the signs of a really good leader is when you can duplicate yourself. So it's not so much that I personally don't believe that there's a point you have to get to where it's like I've reached this point, now I can start developing others. But if you're like working and like doing what you do, diligently, do diligently.
Do what you do diligently.
Do your diligence.
Do your due diligence diligently. Can you diligently do?
And as you're
Diligently.
doing that, as long as like you're staying on your path, you're focused on the right things and growing, you could help someone else grow as well. And I think that's a part of your growth in the process as well. So one thing that they would teach us musicians in school sometimes are like being a teacher is probably one of the best things that you can do as a musician, because as you're teaching someone else a concept, it helps you break it down yourself. So in turn, you're kind of teaching yourself by helping somebody else learn something new. So in that you're building them up and kind of like learning something yourself and seeing things in a way that you might not have viewed it before, because you have to, everybody's different. So what works for one might not work for another. So you have to think of new ways to break it down to them. So I think, and it's not to be like, oh, I've made 2 of me, I'm a great leader. So I think that's where you lose it.
Just because you're developing someone else, it doesn't mean that you're not still developing yourself in the process.
Whenever you stop learning
Period.
is when you're finised. Like you should never stop learning.
I was going to say,
growing.
if you stop growing, maybe you're dead.
Yeah, maybe you shouldn't lead others.
Maybe.
Well, like we're always growing. Like that's something that's always said, and like it's something that I try to walk in, is like to always be learning, even in photography, where like I told you, I'm confident and I'm still, there's so much that I don't know. But at the same time, like I do have that line, or I
But
guess
you
I
know
think,
enough to like teach somebody.
yeah.
Yeah, so you can do both. I liked what you
Yeah.
said about like I don't think you ever get to a point like if you're waiting for yourself to get to a point where it's like I've arrived, now I can teach. I think you've missed it along the way. I think you'll always be looking for like shooting for perfection instead of like excellence or knowing that God has just given you the grace to like be where you're at. Paul said, I am what I am by the grace of God. So like I am where I'm at in my life because of the grace of God. And so am I learning, like Paul had Timothy and Timothy had the church. Like, so Timothy's in this middle, where he's got like this guy leading and investing into him, but he also has been charged with caring for the church and leading the church. So it's like, I think it's both. And I think that,
That's good.
sometimes we can get a little big for our britches, if I can say that on this podcast.
What did you just call
I'm just
it?
dating. I really dated myself. Guys, I'm 34. I'm just 35. I grew up in the South, and we said britches, okay? And now Emily's gone.
What are britches?
Like your pants.
Oh, no.
Like your
I did
pants, right?
not
She said, "What
yeah.
are britches?
What are those?
Britches are pants.
What are those?"
You didn't know that? Man,
Google it.
I must be.
Google
I'm up there with
it.
you.
Google it.
Shout out Ben.
Shout out britches, everybody.
I will never be the same.
How did you not know that?
Guys, I really sorry. I say things sometimes. My wife is always accusing me of
But
sounding
that's
like
a
a
common
grandpa.
phrase.
No, I think that's an
I
Alabama
say
thing.
Yeah, it's like I
I've
could be a
heard that.
South. You're just from the South.
with
I've
Matt
heard-
Tucker.
Oh
Yeah,
my God.
I'm sure Matt Tucker has said it before.
He's probably said bridges. Shout out Matt Tucker. He's his country
Matt,
artist.
we need to get together and
And talk about your bridges.
talk about
our britches.
Bridges be crazy.
We call ourselves the Britch Boys.
But
Caleb,
my God,
thank you so much for
You guys are
blessing
hilarious.
I had something I wanted to close off with that, but
No,
No.
you can't.
Well,
We gotta
I
leave
couldn't
it
even
there.
remember it, even if
We
I
gotta
wanted
leave
to.
it
Like,
there.
I think I want to get. Can I shameless plug real quick?
shameless
Shameless
plug.
Just
Tell them,
love.
give them a full explanation. Take up the next 35 minutes.
I'm done.
And
Oh
do,
my gosh,
do
yes.
a sample podcast
No,
right now.
God,
Right now.
no,
Just
Right
50
now,
minutes.
on the spot.
I did though. I did
Lead
want
us.
to like let people know that that I am starting a podcast in August. It's called The Worship Mentor. You can follow me on Instagram at Worship Mentor Podcast.
Okay, but I looked at the topics that you're
Yes.
thinking of talking about, and
Uh-huh.
it's basically the apprenticeship that I'm walking through plus 1,000.
Plus 1,000.
And
So if you want to be an apprentice,
I'm trying to listen to that. No, literally,
Sign up.
it's so much. Not even just
Do sign up.
worship leader stuff, right? You do
Yeah.
other stuff. Other
Well, I mean, the
topics are you
goal,
talking about?
it's applicable to, like, my heart's really to encourage worship leaders specifically because I are one,
I are one.
I are one. And,
are what I are.
but the goal of the podcast is to help leaders, church leaders specifically, to increase their influence and to leverage their leadership, like to be able to increase the way that we are able to influence things in our circles of influence, in our sphere
Where we
of
are, yeah.
of influence, and then be able to like level up in leadership. Like how do we keep growing? Sometimes it's not going up higher and higher, but it's like deeper and deeper,
Right.
and learning what that means. So
Right. That's
yeah,
good.
Think about that.
is there
you.
a difference between deep growth and high growth?
Ooh,
Find out on his podcast.
find out
Thank y'all so
on the
much.
Worship Mentor.
Like no more questions.
Lord.
But
Caleb, thank you for taking time out of your day to just share your wisdom and
No, thank you,
the
guys.
laughs, the laughy laughs.
Let's hear from the
I get
audience.
them
Give it up for
every
Caleb from UC. Elevation UC, everybody.
Come to
shout out
UC.
UC fam.
Yes, if you're in
Love you
the
guys.
Charlotte area, University City is UC, where you can
Yes.
find these two worshiping and praising.
8105 IBM Drive, Charlotte.
Oh,
North
he
Carolina.
Period.
There it is.
Come on.
I would.
If you haven't shown up yet, 9:30, 11:30, 1:30, get there. Come on, it's amazing.
We're gonna do this podcast for worship on Sunday.
just gonna play it.
we're just gonna play it. Yeah,
Just gonna play it
we're just
on the
gonna play it.
screen.
We are going to hijack
Screen.
Pastor Stephen's
We don't
sermon.
need the word of God. We just
The word of God is in
We
this.
talked about the word of God.
We're like,
The
wait
word
a
of God is
second, you
in
just
this,
crossed the
and this will
line.
only take up 30 minutes of their time.
You're
They
gonna
can
get
catch the back
this is
end
how
of the
Pastor
service.
Stephen gets clipped.
Cancel.
We don't need the word.
Before it even started. Cancel this guy. He said no word of God. No.
Right.
I'm just being silly.
But thanks
just
again,
feeling
Caleb. We appreciate
Hate
you.
mail.
Yeah. Hate mail if you hate Caleb, if you hate Emily,
Whoa.
if you hate me, if you hate Winston,
Winston,
who's
I
been
forgot you were in
quietly
here, man.
sleeping at the foot of our feet, at our feet.
What a great dog.
He's chill. He's been a little
she
gassy
literally
lately.
nudged him with his foot or her foot, and he did nothing.
His farts have been like on 10 this week because
Whoa.
he ate some pulled pork.
Hey,
Anyways, okay.
is that
Shout
why
out
his
pulled
ears are
pork.
like he's
Shout
embarrassed?
out
No, he
pulled
just
pork.
always looks like a seal. But hate mail, love mail, comments, let us pray pod at gmail.com. For godly mail, not Google. Instagram. We're not on the tweets. We're on the ticks and the talks.
The ticks and the talks
And
in IG. I
Ticks and
don't know
talks.
if you said that. Leave us a
did.
comment, like, subscribe, all the things.
Follow the Worship
Tell your-
Mentor podcast.
follow the Worship-
Follow
Yes.
Caleb.
Ooh,
Come
follow
out to
his
UC.
Instagram because it's already up and he's already putting stuff on there because he a
Yes.
boss.
And you
Yeah.
follow me, Caleb.b.wood as well. That's my
Caleb B.
personal
Wood.
account.
And stay tuned for August. Big stuff happening and
Period.
period.
Remember.
Remember to not get too big for your britches.
No. Remember to stay